Hello, this is Mary Bers, and this is September 11, 2017, and we are here as part of the Nashville Bar Association Oral History Project. And it's my pleasure this morning to be talking to Ms. Lucy Honey Haynes, who is the former Chief Deputy of the State Attorney General's Office for the state of Tennessee. Good morning, Lucy.
Good morning,
Thank
Mary.
you for coming today.
Thank you.
Lucy, I'm going to ask you a bit about your background. Of course, we want to talk mostly about your professional life, but just for everybody who is listening, we'd like to talk a bit about your background and where you grew up and your early life before you became a lawyer. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Fayetteville, Tennessee. If those of us who are born in Fayetteville call it Fayetteville, like those from Shelbyville call it Shelbyville. I was born December 30th, 1946. My birth-given name is Lucy Kate Honey, and Haynes is my married name.
And did you go to school and I'm not be able to say this as
Fayetteville?
well as Fayetteville.
I did. I went to elementary and high school there. My elementary school was Robert E. Lee Elementary. It was a block from my house, so I walked every day to school for 8 years. My high school was Central High School, which was a city school. So I grew up there and lived on Swanson Boulevard most all my life.
Did you have any interests, things that you enjoyed as a child doing?
I did. I loved to read. My mother instilled a love of reading in all of her children. She took us to the library and when we were toddlers, and so I have a lifelong love of reading. I love politics. I loved staying up for elections, and I loved listening to music. I loved rock and roll music, and that evolved into a love of country music, classic country music, and I have all those interests.
You have told me in the past that your interest in law started very early in your life. Tell us about that.
I decided to become a lawyer when I was 13. And today that's not unusual for a 13-year-old girl to decide to become a lawyer, but this was 1959, and it was very unusual at the time. And the reason I became a lawyer and wanted to become a lawyer is because of something my 7th grade teacher wrote in an autograph book, and I brought that with me.
Oh my!
In 1959, when I was 13, we had these autograph books and passed them around every year and wrote poems and other things to each other.
First of all, let's just show the outside of the autograph book, and it is definitely early 1960s,
Yes.
isn't it? Okay.
Yes, I can't believe I still have it. But my 7th grade teacher was Jean Moores, and she wrote the first entry in the book. She said, "Lucy, you're a love, but you will argue!" Exclamation point. That's all right, because someday you may be a lawyer.
Oh,
Jean
my.
Moores.
Had you thought about being a lawyer before that?
No, not at all. No, I've never been around lawyers. I watched Perry Mason, but that's it.
Did you know what lawyers did?
No, had no idea.
But anyway, you decided that might be a start?
It did. She planted the seed, and from that day on, I decided that's what I wanted to be and never wanted to do anything else.
And you never changed your mind, did you?
No, never.
My. And where did you go to college?
I went to Middle Tennessee State University in Murfreesboro.
What did you major in?
Political science, which I thought would be a good background
Sure.
for law school, and
Sure.
it was. It was a wonderful department. I got a good foundation there.
You had many interests that were akin to lawyers' work as a child, reading and love of politics, perhaps, and just a very eclectic interest in the world. And so maybe your teacher just was saying what she observed.
It could be, but that's how it all started for me.
When you were in college, did you have any particular activities that you got involved in?
I did through the political science department. I was in various academic clubs. Was in a social sorority, Chi Omega, but I participated in a couple of internships through the political science department. One was with Judge Roy Miles, who was First Circuit judge.
Yes.
in Davidson County, and he's the grandfather of Randy Miles,
Sure.
who worked at the Attorney General's
That's right.
office.
He was an assistant attorney general, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. And so I became very close with him. I also did a internship with the Internal Revenue Service. And I participated in a Model United Nations a program, and so I was really active in the department.
You were very active, period, weren't you? Then did you go directly to law school from college?
I did. I just took the summer and didn't ever think about working, and didn't ever think about not going directly to law school.
That was your game plan, and
Yes.
you're sticking to it, weren't you? Where did you go to law school?
Went to Vanderbilt Law School.
And what year did you start?
69.
1969. Wow. Were there other women in your class?
There were a few. There were 5 of us.
Oh my.
By the 3rd year, there was a 6th one, but we started out with 5 women. It was a class of about 150, so just about less than 5% of the class was women.
Were you okay with that, or?
Oh, I was scared to death. I was petrified the whole time I was in law school.
Did you ever question your desire to be
Yes.
a lawyer? Did you?
Many times, surrounded by all those smart people who I just had low self-esteem during most of my laws. I just had no idea. It was a rude awakening.
But you had a lot of determination, didn't
Yes, yes. I was there. I was going to finish.
you? Good, good. Who were some of the? Were there any teachers, instructors who were who inspired you, or that you remember particularly well?
I remember they were all good, of course, but it was such a privilege to be in John Wade's torts class. He was dean of the law school at the time, and he was, of course, the editor, or wrote the nationally famous casebook on tort law. And so that was just really a privilege to learn about torts, and I've always had an interest in it. And it's because he made it so interesting and understandable.
Yeah, it's amazing how a teacher can make such a difference,
Yes,
isn't it?
it is.
In law school, a teacher can make such a difference. Now, during law school, during those 3 years, did you have any clerkships outside the class?
The first summer I did not. I didn't even look for one. I just didn't think I could find one. And I was a secretary at a learning center in Nashville. The second year, I clerked, had a summer clerkship in Dyersburg with Joe Boyd. Joe came to the campus specifically to interview female students, and he made me an offer to clerk with him in the summer, and that was a wonderful experience. Joe's a brilliant lawyer, always was, and still is.
He later became. He later became, was it the lawyer for the Department of Mental Health?
Yes, he did. He and his wife moved to Nashville. I can't remember when, but they moved to Nashville, and both of them worked for the state.
Yes, Mary, his wife, Mary Boyd.
Right.
So Joe went on and had a very distinguished career.
Yes.
Even beyond that time. So you clerked for him during your second year,
right,
when you were rising 3rd year at Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Did you anticipate what your life would be like as a lawyer?
I didn't know. When I first started at Vanderbilt, I thought, well, Vanderbilt produces corporate lawyers. Maybe I'll go into corporate law. I didn't know what that meant. And even by graduation time, I didn't know what I wanted to do. You know, you fill out these forms about, the students are asked to fill out forms about what you want to do when you graduate, and mine said no location preference, no practice preference, so I just didn't know.
But you were one of 6 women
Yes.
in your graduating class
Yes.
at Vanderbilt Law School, and you graduated in
72.
1972, when there were very few women, I imagine, who were practicing just in the Middle Tennessee region.
Right. There were a few. Muriel Robinson was practicing at the time I was here, and I think Dobbins may have been, and Carol McCoy came a year later.
Yes.
She was a year behind me in law school.
So
Former
you-
Chancellor,
Yes.
former Chancellor
Yes,
McCoy.
yes. But you were forging some new paths and some new territory, weren't you?
Yes, I think so.
At that time. Let me ask you, of course, we want to talk about your career with the Attorney General's office, but even before that, you had quite a career. And I wanted to ask you about that. What did you do? What was your first job?
Well, you know, I brought something else to show you because
good.
I passed the bar in '72, and I didn't even look for a job until I knew I passed the bar, because I think the first year the multi-state was offered was in '72.
And you were so lucky.
Yeah. And I walked out of the exam not being comfortable about a single question. So I wasn't going to look for a job until I knew I had a license in hand. But at that time, they notified, you know, now you can check the results online. But at that time, they sent you telegrams.
Oh, my.
I still have the telegram.
Of course.
Just to prove that I really passed the bar. So Western Union called me and said, I have a telegram for you. Do you want me to read it? And I paused for a really long time. But here it is. It says, we are pleased to advise you that you were successful on the July bar exam. So I know I passed.
What was the date of that?
That was September 9th, 1972. So that was a happy day.
What a wonderful day. Everybody remembers that day.
Yes.
The day that they found out that they passed the bar. Of course you kept the telegram.
Oh, yes, I did.
That's the
now
first.
You can sit at home and, you know, pull it up online, but
along with 500,000 other people
Yeah.
who can look at it as well. But that's something very, very special.
it is.
So what did you do?
My first job was with Elk and Duck Rivers Legal Services Association. It was based in Cheville, but served surrounding counties in Middle Tennessee. And that organization, you know, aided low-income individuals with their legal problems. There were housing issues, domestic, bankruptcy, government benefits, consumer issues. And that was a wonderful first job to have because I love my clients.
Yes.
And being in rural legal services, many of my clients did not have cars. There was no mass transportation, so I would make house calls and collect the information about their problems at their homes. And that was really an eye-opener. I really had no idea before then what it meant to live in poverty, and learned quickly and developed a compassion for those who are poor and don't have the basic necessities. So that was a wonderful experience, but the funding was eliminated for that office, and I moved then to Legal Services of Nashville about a year later.
Were you doing primarily the same types
Yes.
of
And I worked with Walter Kurtz was the director
and he
of the office.
He later became a circuit court judge.
Yes.
Yes.
And Ashley Wiltshire, both of them were in my class at Vanderbilt. And Gordon Bonneman was there, Dave Tarpley. And they were all so committed to their clients. So
And they remain committed.
yes.
To them.
And they're all wonderful lawyers. So that was a great experience as well.
Yes, yes. Were they all new to the practice of law?
Yes.
Were
yes.
they? So you were all doing this at the same time, learning as you were going.
Yes.
What courts did you go to?
In Nashville, I went primarily to state courts. At that time, Ben Cantrell and Frank DeRota were chancellors, wonderful judges, and but mostly state courts. With the Elk and Duck Rivers Legal Services, I went to state courts in the surrounding counties, and occasionally to bankruptcy court or federal court.
Bedford County and that.
Pulaski,
Yes.
Giles County, and even Wayne County, I think.
Yes. In Nashville, of course, it was a little bit more of a urban environment
Yes.
than those regions south of Nashville.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
but the problems were the same.
Yes.
You were finding. Yes. What time span would this have been that you were in those two offices?
Well, I started with Elk and Duck Rivers in '72.
Yes.
And then it closed sometime the next year, so '73 to '74.
You were
I
with
was with Legal Services. in
Legal
Nashville.
Services.
Right.
That's a remarkable way to start.
It is.
You probably had to jump in and start swimming fast,
That's
didn't
right.
you? Wow, that's.
But it was, you know, Gordon and Ashley and Walt and Dave were such good teachers that.
I was going to ask you who role models would have been for you in your early years of practice. Would those people be the people that you'd be? Yeah.
And Joe Boyd, of course.
Sure, sure.
Who really knew how to practice law and taught me a lot about practicing law.
Yes, and, anybody would be very fortunate to have that type of role model. But anyway, let us move on. 1 minute, please. Sorry, thank you very much. While I turn off my cell phone, Lucy, which I should have done well before, let me ask.
Well, you never get calls until you.
No, of course, and I'm sure it was a robocall also.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this also. Where did you go next?
Well, while I was with the Legal Services of Nashville, I got a call from Joe Boyd, and his wife Mary wanted to go to law school at the University of Memphis, and he asked if I would join him in his practice, and I did. I jumped at the chance because he was just such a good teacher and such a good lawyer.
And he was in Dyersburg.
Yes.
And so you
I uprooted and moved to Dyersburg. A little apartment and where things closed really early at night. It's very flat. But it was a great experience as well.
What was your practice with?
It was a general practice. We formed a firm of Boyd and Honey was our law firm, and we had a general practice, plaintiff oriented. Did a lot of personal injury. Did a little criminal. A lot of contract work, bankruptcy, real estate, everything. I mean, when they say I take everything that walks through the door, that's really what a general practice does.
Wow. So you had all of these experiences even before the Attorney General's office.
Yes.
You had tasted a lot of what the practice of law can mean.
Yes, I did, and I was so lucky to be with Joe because he really reinforced the need to be prepared and to do thorough research and to be creative. And you're thinking about cases. I had my first civil rights case when I was with him, and Joe was also kind of I would say a trailblazer too, because he would use his license for good. He would, take an unpopular case or an unpopular cause, even if he got no fee, if he saw the opportunity to right a wrong.
You really saw what the practice of law was about.
Yes.
Were you in any way disappointed with the practice of law?
Well, it was hard.
Yes, yes.
I mean, but it was, it just is, it's a lot of wear and tear.
It is.
And after I left Joe after a couple of years and started my own office, and being in solo practice is just a lot of wear and tear. But you learn about so many areas of law, and you do things that you've never done before.
Yes.
Because you have to.
Yes.
So I wouldn't trade the experience for anything in the world.
Yeah. And that was in Dyersburg also. So you were flying on your own.
Yes.
For a while.
For a couple of years,
wow.
Yeah. And with him and in my practice, I practiced in the state courts and also federal courts in Memphis, bankruptcy court.
So you were all over in the western part of Memphis with that. You came back to Nashville around 1981.
That's
Is that
correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
What brought you back to Nashville?
While I was in Dyersburg, I met my husband Randy, and
Lucy, I'm so sorry.
I met my husband Randy Haynes, and we got married, had a child, and Randy wanted to practice law too. He wanted to go to law school, and I really missed the rolling hills of Middle Tennessee, so we packed up and moved to Nashville. He went to law school, and I went to the Department of Labor to work.
What did you do there?
I started out as general counsel. This was during Lamar Alexander's term, the end of his term, and the first commissioner was Jack Richardson. And then the second term, the commissioner was Francis Guess. So I was still general counsel for a while, and that was another just fabulous experience. Francis Guess is just a remarkable person. He's a community leader. He was a leader in state government. He did a lot to instill confidence in me.
Yes.
He heaped on me lots of responsibilities and had high expectations, and he really boosted my confidence a lot and just gave me just exciting, wonderful projects to work on.
I was going to ask you if you could just name a couple of the projects you worked on.
He would ask me to draft legislation that he had to file that day.
That's pretty exciting.
So I learned how to work under pressure. I already knew how to work under pressure, but that was real pressure. As general counsel, I handled some cases. I defended the Second Injury Fund and traveled across the state doing that, and I also handled the administrative appeals of TOSHA citations before the Review Commission. So I got to keep my hand in litigation and practice, but there were just lots of opportunities to work with employers, employees. The department dealt with employment rights, and that was one of their divisions, in addition to workers' compensation and boilers and elevators and occupational safety and health. But I would be sent to the legislature sometimes to testify, and that was an experience, an enriching experience.
You must have felt ready to do anything.
I did. I thought I could do anything, and it wouldn't faze me. I didn't think I could do anything, but it wouldn't faze me if I.
When you were at the Department of Labor, what ultimately was your title?
I became assistant commissioner under Francis Guess, and then ultimately deputy commissioner, and that was the position when the term ended, and there was a new governor and a new commissioner.
For time frame purposes, about what time?
That would have been 81 to 87.
And
that was the whole time I was there.
And then there was a change.
Yes.
To a new place, a
Right.
new challenge.
Right.
And what was that?
That was the Attorney General's office.
What brought you over to the Attorney General's office?
Well, as the administration changed and the new commissioner, of course, the position of deputy commissioner is very vulnerable.
Sure.
New commissioners want their own staff, and so I knew I was going to lose that job. And Vincent Williams, who worked in the Attorney General's office, he and I, that's how we first met.
Former deputy.
Yes.
The Attorney General's office.
He worked in labor as an assistant commissioner. He left early to go to the Attorney General's office, and he told me about an opening there. Patsy Cottrell, retired Judge
She is
Cottrell.
former judge of the Court
Yes.
of Appeals, along with many other titles
Yes.
that she has had. Former chief deputy herself of the Attorney General's
exactly
office.
Right, and she was managing attorney. She was going to be moving to a deputy of a civil litigation division, and so that position was open. It really matched my background because it was a lot of administrative work, and so I interviewed with Patsy and about 16 other people, and got that position. So.
Who was the Attorney General at the time?
Mike Cody.
All right. And how many? Can you count up in your mind how many attorneys general you served under, or maybe just give us their names?
Yes,
that might be harder though.
No, I think
everybody.
I can remember. I served under 6: Mike Cody, Knox Walkup, Paul Summers, Charles Burson. He was before Paul Summers. Charles Burson, Paul Summers, Bob Cooper, and Herbert Slattery.
That's six attorneys general.
Yes.
Oh my! So what was your title here?
The first title was managing attorney, and I was managing attorney for I guess about 5 years, and then Patsy was named director of law by Phil Bredesen, who was mayor of Nashville at the time.
For the Metro Legal Office.
And she asked me to join her, and help her with that job, and so I did. I became Deputy Director of Law.
What did you do as Deputy Director of Law?
It was very similar to a lot of things I had done at the AG's office.
Yes,
I supervised the staff and worked on some transactional matters, contracts and other things. There was a lot of interaction with council members and day-to-day legal advice to council members and department heads. The Metro Legal Department spends a lot of time working with the council, drafting legislation and attending meetings. So there was a lot of that, but that was a great job.
Yeah, I bet it was a good job. But fortunately for the Attorney General's office, you came back.
I did, yeah.
When was that?
That was it was about a year and a half later. Patsy was asked to become Chief Deputy by Charles Burson, who was the Attorney General. And I just wanted to come back with her. So I came back and when I came back, my title was Deputy of the Administrative Division. All the administrative functions were consolidated into a division. Yes. And so I became head of that division.
And I recall meeting you when you were over at Metro, but everybody still thought of you as part of the Attorney General's office still. It's amazing how you were able to hold those two jobs down at the same time in everybody's mind.
Right. I did keep a lot of connections there.
You did. You did. So everybody was very glad to have you come back. So what did you do in this new position?
As Deputy of the Administrative Division, I continued to supervise the administrative functions of the office, personnel, fiscal, buildings, everything that was a support service. I worked a lot on the budget. That was an annual task. I managed the outside counsel process. When the office, AG's office, is unable to handle a case because of a conflict or when they need out-of-state counsel or special expertise, the AG, with the governor's approval, may contract with outside counsel. So I manage the appointment process and paying their invoices and monitoring some of the cases.
I can't help but draw this back to the fact that you were a little girl when you decided to become a lawyer, that you were one of 5 entering into Vanderbilt Law School, that you were scared, one of 6 to graduate from the law school in 1969.
72.
72, I'm so sorry. And set out not knowing where you were going to go. Right. And here you are. That's just amazing, and still moving up the ladder too. So tell me what other types of assignments, roles, responsibilities you got in the course of being in the Attorney General's office.
In 1998, when Knox Walkup was Attorney General, he appointed Andy Bennett as Chief Deputy Attorney General, and I think that's when Patsy left the office. And Andy at that time was Associate Chief Deputy, and so Andy was appointed Chief Deputy and I was appointed Associate Chief Deputy. So I worked very closely with Andy when he was out of the office. I would review documents in his absence. I would work on a lot of the issues that he worked on. I worked with him. I still managed the administrative and support services. I reviewed expert contracts, rules, still managed outside counsel. So I was involved with every division.
You were involved with hiring also.
And hiring,
yes. And I imagine you saw a lot of changes, a lot of growth in the Attorney General's office. Yes. And in your hiring or your interviewing of people who were interested in working, you were seeing even more people coming to the office.
Yes.
That would be so?
Absolutely, yeah. When I started working in the office in 1987, there were about 80 lawyers.
Yes.
And by the time I left in 2016, there were like 180. So, you know, the size of the office just increased over time.
Wow. And you were responsible for interviewing a goodly number of those new lawyers who came in, and they were some remarkable people.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
At some point, Andy Bennett became Judge Bennett.
Yes.
And then what happened?
That was during Bob Cooper's term. Andy was his chief deputy, and he left, and General Cooper, thankfully, appointed me to take the position.
And thankfully you said yes.
No, there was no question. There was no thinking about that. It was just a great office and a great place to be chief deputy. And
What did you do as chief deputy?
I worked very closely with the Attorney General in the day-to-day operation of a law firm, the state's law firm. I assigned cases and projects as they came in. I reviewed the documents that went to General Cooper for his signature. The Attorney General personally approves a lot of documents, and so I would review complaints and real estate documents, deeds, leases, subordination agreements, and settlements of cases, memos suggesting that the office take certain actions. So I reviewed those matters before they went to him, and I checked for quality and consistency in positions that we were taking, and that was a great part of the job.
So all of that came through you.
Yes.
To you and through you,
yes,
as the chief deputy. And I recall, of course, as an assistant attorney general, there were many questions that would arise, and ultimately the answer was, well, we better go talk to Lucy. And we certainly did. And so you certainly took on many hats during the day that you probably didn't think you were going to be wearing.
Yes.
Many types of issues that you didn't realize you would be encountering.
Yes.
And
it could be because the office, the breadth of the work done by the office is amazing. And you could be talking about interstate water rights one day, and the next day talking about bond financing, and it was all so interesting. And that was a great part of my job too, was the daily interaction with the attorneys and staff and deputies about both legal and administrative issues.
And I can say, as one who is further down the chain there, but how much confidence it gave to us to have had your thought, your review, your counsel on these issues that made all the difference in the world. We felt more confident in what we were doing and knew that we were on the right track. How long did you stay as chief deputy?
I was appointed in 2008, and I was chief deputy until I retired in June of 2016. So a little over 8 years. I was very grateful to the current AG, Herbert Slattery, when he came in. I was honored to be asked to stay on as chief deputy, and really learned a lot from him in the short time I was there with him, about 1.5 years. But he maintained and still is maintaining the traditions of excellence in the office, and understands and emphasizes the importance of high ethical standards. So working in that kind of environment with all the AGs who had those standards was a wonderful experience, and always made me want to do my best.
Yes, well, it was a learning experience for so many of us, and changed us so much in our lives to have that type of high standard expected of us. And you certainly were the one who helped to make sure that that standard was upheld.
Thank you.
And as one who learned from you, I am very, very grateful to you. You are retired now.
Yes.
And what are you doing?
Well, I stepped away from the law.
Yes.
And took a long time to stop and smell the roses. I am spending a lot of time with family, and I have a grandson and another one, baby girl on the way, grandbaby girl on the way. And I spend a lot of time with them, and I treasure every minute of that. I'm reading a lot. I'm stacking books on my steps. Books I intend to read, and I'll never get to all of them. But and I've taken some adult learning classes. I'm trying to do some good deeds along the way.
You're visiting a number of baseball stadiums also.
I'm trying to, yeah. I'm trying to get to them before the season's over, and I just got a passport, so I may try to find some exotic place to go to, or not so exotic. And, you know, I hope to learn a language, a new language. So
Oh, that's excellent.
I'm just
That's
really enjoying
wonderful.
retirement to the fullest.
Wow. Lucy, we've talked so much about your professional life and just about your life in general. In the course of an amazing career where you did so many different things, where did you find the encouragement, the inspiration that kept you going?
Well, I've been so fortunate. My career has spanned almost 45 years. I've had many opportunities, as I've discussed, presented to me. And along the way, just had all encouragement and inspiration from a lot of people. You know, starting with in college with my political science department, the professors there were very encouraging. They wrote letters on my behalf when I went to law school. They really supported and promoted my dream of becoming a lawyer. Joe Boyd, of course, is a role model and mentor, and you know, and I treasure that time I spent with him. Francis Guest, as I said, is a remarkable person who taught me a lot about leadership and helped me with problem solving and creative thinking, and every AG I've worked with has been an inspiration. They have set such high standards in the office, and they all have been outstanding lawyers and outstanding administrators. And I'll always be grateful to Bob Cooper for appointing me as his chief deputy, because it's the best job in town. And certainly the best job in the office, so I'm very grateful for that. And you know, inspired by Herbert Slattery, who kept me on as his chief deputy, and is doing good things for the office. And just all the talented lawyers in the office inspired me. I read their work every day. I interacted with them. The state is in such good hands, and so you know, I've been inspired at every step of my career, and it's been thoroughly enjoyable.
Well, you know, you've been an inspiration to me, and I can say that for many, many other people who've had the very, very good fortune to be able to work under you and with you in the Attorney General's office. You made all the difference for us, Lucy.
Thank
you so
you.
much. This is Mary Bers, and this concludes my interview of Lucy Haynes. Thank you.